thank you so much for sharing your insights into the future of leadership. But before we go into leadership, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I'm a mother, a wife, a sister, and a daughter. I grew up in Garankuwa in Pretoria, and spent some of my life in the village called Marapiani, which is now in Mpumalanga. And I studied all my undergraduate degree at University of Uputatswana and all my postgraduate degrees at Wits University. And
as you grew up, did you have a dream career?
Not really. I mean, my parents wanted me to be a medical doctor, but I didn't like it. I loved mathematics, so I just wanted to do mathematics. And in my undergraduate degree, I also did education as a separate subject, and I did mathematics. At that time, it wasn't clear what mathematics would give you access to because there wasn't much career information. So I was quite happy to go into education and teach, which I did. I taught at a college, I taught at school. Then I went into the NGO world. But really all I've done, most of what I've done in my education career, teaching career, was mathematics, nothing else. Now,
who inspired you in your early days?
My mother. My mother inspired me a lot. She studied with us. When I did grade 1, she went back to school to complete higher primary school and then start high school. She was married already, she had 3 kids, and she went back, and we studied with her throughout our lives. I mean, and so I was inspired by her because she was a hard worker, and you always had to beat her because she always got good results. And when I got my doctorate, she got her degree. She was 58 at the time. She didn't need a degree, but she wanted to die with a degree. She's still alive, but she's got a degree. That's what she wanted.
And today, Prof, you're a world-renowned scientist. Looking back over your career, was there a major turning point?
I think a turning point was a doctorate. Getting a doctorate, sort of, I always say it's a license to practice. I was an academic, but without a doctorate, it's as if you're practicing, you're driving without a license, you're practicing without a license. And so it created opportunities, it gives you a voice, it gives you more people listen and hear what you say more than before you got it. Some of the things that I said before I got my doctorate got heard better after I got my doctorate. So it created a lot of opportunities for me.
And tell us, what is driving you today?
The future of our country, the future of our continent. And I'm committed to education and young people in particular, because I think that's where the future lies. We have to invest in our young people. We can't be too despondent, because I know that we have no future if we don't invest in our young people. In all their flaws, I look back and I think when I was young, I wasn't perfect. I was idealistic. I thought I can change the world just on my own. And they have similar dreams, and they pursue their dreams sometimes in ways that are not comfortable for us. And whatever that is, in my view, our young people are the future, and education is the future. Educating them is the future, and that's my commitment to this continent and this country.
Now, Prof, when it comes to leadership, what does the future of leadership mean to you?
The future of leadership for me means that if we're going to lead, we've got to understand the people we're leading. We don't lead buildings, we don't lead projects, we lead people. If you don't understand people, then you, in my view, you cannot lead. And people exist in a context, and the context is not always whether it's a banking or education or whatever. It's not always whether it's South Africa or whatever. It's all of that, but it's also what the times are about. So every period in our lives brings with it its own challenges: political, economic, social. And when you lead in that time, you're leading people who exist in that context. And so your leadership has got to recognize the context of your leadership. In which context are you leading? Because sometimes people become successful in peace times. either peace times, economically, politically, or socially, but they become not so successful as leaders in crisis times. And it's because if you don't understand the context of your leadership, you may apply what worked in peacetime, and it might not work in crisis time. You know, we are at a difficult time at the moment, whether politically, economically, socially. It's a difficult time. The world is much more polarized than, in my view, in my lifetime or in my time as an adult, I've ever seen it to be. South Africa is much more polarized, and so leadership has got to recognize that. The fourth industrial revolution is here. Young people are not the same young people that we led 15 years ago. Generation C, they get access to knowledge very easily. They have a voice that they can broadcast to the whole world through social media in an instant. And so our leadership has got to recognize this context and therefore be able to lead people in this context. You cannot wish the context away and say, social media is doing this, it must go away. It will never go away. It's here. So we've got to learn how to lead in this context. The young people of today, I can't just sit here and say you can't lead them because they are this, they are that. This is what it is. I've got to make sure that my leadership is able to manage young people of today.
So, Prof, what have you learned from your own journey that you consider most important for building future leaders?
I think one of the big lessons is that I always thought there's black and white, not in terms of race, but in terms of, what do you do, this or that. And as I go on in my journey, I realize there's actually a whole lot of big gray area. And what makes you successful is how you manage that. Things are not always clear cut. And what makes you successful as a leader in this context where there isn't just black or white is the ability to be decisive. You must be decisive and have a reason for why that decision was made and stand by it. Be true to that. Younger, I thought the decision is either black or white, but it's not that simple. It's much more complex. Many things are that much complex. And I talk about excellence at UCT, which is something that I pursued for so much of my life, that in my growth I've also learned even excellence is complex. It's not just black or white. It's not that you have it or not. It's much more complex. Some of it is great, and sometimes it excludes, marginalizes, whatever. So it's like, I'm learning more and more about the complexity of life and all it takes to make it in it.
And Prof, when you speak to aspiring leaders, what is it you tell them they should focus on for future-proofing their career?
I think I always say to them, get to know who you're leading. Get to know, so the context of your leadership, connect with people, have some content. You can't lead without content. What is it that you offer to the people? What is it that it's not just the style of leader? There should be some content. And I always say that for me, those things are important in terms of, and also it's important that you are ethical, you are principled, because you can't just go with the politics of today without. There has to be some centering of your leadership, the values that guide your decision making. They've got to be clear. So whether the people I lead are changing or not, the value system remains the same. Of course, I've got to, I recognize the changes, the complexity of the time, and I work with it. But there's a value system that remains consistent throughout your leadership, and I think it's important for leadership to bring into that. And we come into a leadership space not as blank slates. We bring ourselves into it. So we bring our value systems, we bring who we are, and sometimes what makes us successful is also being true to who we are. And so I'm also about being, I say to people, you've got to be authentic, because then you can lead honestly. If you lead honestly, then your people also get to know what is it that they're dealing with here. But there's something that directs the way you lead.
And Prof, when it comes to technology, what are the technologies or maybe the tools of technology that you would suggest future leaders should learn and maybe master?
Well, I mean, I first of all, I think future leaders should firstly become more environmentally aware, recognize where paper comes from, and actually get off paper. I'm all about getting off paper and working online. What our mobile devices can do today is way more than what it could do 5 years ago. The tools that it offers, I mean, even the resources that it offers. I mean, there's lots that I've done on my device that has connected me with people that I would never have imagined being able to connect to. I know people talk down to social media, but social media, as much as it's risky, it's a tool that you can use to meet the right people, to connect with the young people, to influence, to guide, and also to get to know, crazy as it is, what's happening in this world. And of course, it's not everyone who's there, but it gives you a gaze into something in the world, in the world of social media and young people who occupy that space. So I think mobile devices are the way to go, and getting off paper and just learning to function without paper is something that we should all get on to doing.
And Prof, when it comes to social media, what is it that you tell aspiring leaders and maybe even your children? How should they go about handling social media to build their own brand?
I mean, my principle with social media is be you, do good. You know, there's no point in being on social media just to troll people, just to drag people. You know, we don't need people like those on social media, just like we don't need them in the street. You can do good to so many people on social media just by giving positive messages, by sharing your stories that are encouraging, that are inspiring, by sharing breakthroughs. I mean, people do different things on social media, and sometimes people decide, you can decide, this is the part of me I'm willing to share on social media. You don't have to share all your life. We don't want to know all your life. It's too much. So choose what's the part of your life that you're going to share on social media, and be true to your message. So what's that message, and what's that brand that you want to showcase on social media? Is the brand that says, this is what I stand for, and this is how I live it out. So you want to show, if you show this is a brand, this is what I stand for, then everything that you do there should show that that's who you are, and not a flip-flop. You also, I don't think it's a wise thing to create an image that doesn't exist in real life. You create it in social media. I think it's better to be authentic. And I say to my children about social media that they have to be aware that whatever they put on social media will come back to bite them. One day they will want an opportunity, and someone is going to just check them on social media, and they will find out what is it that they've been writing about, and they will say no or yes to them. They are young, they don't have a profile. This is part of developing their profile. So they've got to know. Mistakes will happen. When mistakes happen, they should quickly own up and get, because they are human. We are not in heaven yet. So when mistakes happen, they should clean up and move on. And that's something that I say to my children a lot.
And Prof, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored somebody and that person took your advice to heart?
Wow, I mean, there are so many young people who've taken my advice to heart. I mean, I was talking this morning to one of them who I met many years ago. He's a foreign national from Democratic Republic of Congo, who left the Congo during time of war, came here as an asylum seeker, was young in his 20s, became a security guard in KwaZulu-Natal, and as a security guard decided to register at UNISA, and I met him whilst I was working at UNISA. He registered for IT, and he said he registered for IT because as a security guard, they used to throw computers, and he would open them up, he would, that's how he got interest, and he was a security guard registered at UNISA. I met him, he was struggling, and he became part of the students that I funded on my Adopt Helena Foundation, which is my foundation. And I mentored the young man, and he got his degree. He wrote to me recently, he's working, and he wrote to me recently to say thank you so much. I mean, we communicate a lot, and he's getting married in May next year. So firstly, just the advice of don't focus on your problems. Your past is your past. Your family is in the DRC. To be in South Africa and always worrying about what are they eating, and not being able to focus on your studies and getting something will not rescue them. But if you get your degree, get educated and get a job, get set up, you'll be able to help them. Just in terms of that kind of focus. And today he is getting married. There's many other students, some are doing PhDs at Vets who I mentor. There's students at UCT who I mentor, who are becoming, I mean, my mentoring is largely focusing on education because I know what education has done for me. And my advice to young people from poor backgrounds, some of who are angry about their backgrounds, is that it doesn't help to stay in the state of anger about the past, about what happened in this country. What's important is what you're going to do about it. And to say, to be angry at the fact that you are getting the opportunity but others are not, it's not going to help either. So you better make the most of the opportunity that you have, milk it, do the most with it, so that with the success that you get, you can then help others. And I can see that advice. Some of the students that I mentor are overseas. They're doing their masters, their doctorates, and I continue to keep in contact with them to encourage them, to guide them, and to show them that actually there's there's no point in getting bogged down in the battle when there's a bigger goal of winning the war against inequality, poverty, and whatever. And education is a way into winning that.
And Prof, are there any role models of leadership that you would suggest future leaders should study and maybe learn from?
Wow. It becomes more and more difficult as you grow older to say who do you study and follow, because people are complex, and people have their downsides. And so you want to recognize different things from different people, not because they're perfect, but because they've got something to offer. There are people I admire, some of who I haven't met. I mean, I read a lot of Marcus Buckingham, whose work I admire. I admire Adrian Gore a lot. I mean, a whole lot more than he knows. That I have so much respect for that man. Just in terms of the ideas, the fact how he came, the idea of discovery and vitality, getting people to live healthy, and in a way that certainly it's working for me, because I know that in my family people have six packs because of Adrian Gore, right? And we eat much more healthy, and we drive better because we're thinking he can see us, because he gives us a sense that he can see us. But I admire him. I admire his humility, even when you meet him, how grounded he is. I admire Sizwe Nxasana and his wife Judy, how committed they are to education in this country. They don't have to be that interested. They've worked hard. They're successful as professionals, not as BEE recipients or business people as such, but as professionals they're successful. And here they are investing in education, giving their all to enable South Africa to move forward in education. So I admire them a lot. I look at Judy and I say to God, when I grow up, if I can be half the woman she is, I'll be happy. So it's people like those who have been successful as leaders, but they have gone on not to only they've gone on to make use of their success to enable other people to be successful. Adrian, Sizwe, they do that. Judy, they do that. So just briefly, I admire Gracia Machel. I mean, I'm so lucky at UCT that I've got the support of Mam Grasha and Mampela Rampele, who in many ways, they were trailblazers as women. They walked the path that was never walked. Dr. Mampela was the first Vice-Chancellor, black woman Vice-Chancellor of UCT. In fact, woman Vice-Chancellor of UCT. At a time when it wasn't heard of. And so they've opened the path and they've managed to create a space for us to walk in, to see a possibility because they have walked in that journey. So those are some of the people that I admire and look up to.
So Prof, where can our listeners follow you and how should they connect with you?
Well, you can connect with me on Twitter @FabAcademic. I'm on Facebook as Mamokgethi Phakeng, otherwise Instagram @FabAcademic.
And last but not least, Prof, is there one piece of advice that you would really like to convey to future leaders that they should implement in their own leadership?
And I think I've been saying it quite a lot. Be authentic. Do you. Lead ethically. Leadership is service. Serve. It's not about you. It's about the people that you're leading and where you're taking them to.
Well, Prof, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom.
Thank you.
And for reminding us that leadership is about serving others. And that's probably why we're here on this planet.
Thank you very much. Yes, it is. Otherwise, why do we need leaders? I mean, people could just do things on their own. But we need leaders because people want to look up to someone who can take them to a place that they wouldn't be able to go to alone. And a leader shows them that place and makes it look worthwhile to go to. And so it's not about us, it's about the people we lead.
Thank you.
Thank you.